Today we're going to be talking about the next step in creating a documentary. And now that I have touched base with the people who relate to the topic, and I mentioned in the last video about this somewhat synchronistically, that now it's time to really dig in and do some research. So about the topic, I already had some grounding in experience and knowledge, but now it's time to get to some websites that can describe the issue further, to find out especially recent things that have happened on the topic. Most people make documentaries because they feel moved by a specific topic. They want to let people know, because if more people know, they will care and maybe help the greater good. So researching recent events, researching history, researching asking the people that you've met in relation to the situation what books they recommend. I've got a few book recommendations, and now I'm going to go to the library or look for it on Amazon, and those are the next steps. You also want to be asking yourself what stance you're taking right now, and I'm going to mention that you probably should not hold on to that too strongly. Sometimes when you make a documentary, your opinion stays the same. And sometimes as you go, you learn and you discover. And sometimes those can make the best documentaries, where you go, oh, I totally thought this, but then I thought this. And that will highlight actually what not quotes, but like when you're interviewing people, what you want to put in from that interview, because you might have a 10-minute interview and you only want to put in maybe 30 seconds of that. And we'll talk about editing later, but this is a really important thing to recognize, because as you go along, it might change your opinion on things. I will use the example of a news story. I consider news stories, and maybe I'll do another one about this, but news packages and documentaries, to me, it has the same feel to it when I'm doing research and shooting it and doing interviews. So I once did a news package covering an incident in Sedona where a bunch of people had died in a sweat lodge that was conducted in a really unspiritual manner, and the lodge was made out of plastic, and these poor people asphyxiated and they weren't allowed out. It was pretty terrible. And the woman I spoke with, and I had always, had reverence for a lot of spiritual things in relation to Native Americans, but I spoke to the head of Native American Studies at a college nearby Sedona, and she basically, I had been in sweat lodges and I had studied that aspect of Native American culture, and she was just like, you can't just come in and be part of that aspect of our culture and then not care that there are people living in poverty on reservations. And, to that, and she said that medicine is not for you. You will become part of that medicine when you start giving a damn about the other aspects of tribal life, which right now is not great. And I was just like, okay, and I get that. Because at first I just thought, oh, it's just because I'm white. But then I was just like, oh, you know what? You're right. It is a bit of a cultural appropriation to go and do that and not go and care for the other aspects on reservations and things like that. Even though I do care for, I do what I can toward environmentalism and everything, it's not human connection with that. So my point in describing that is that I had a complete shift in the way that I think about the topic of my own spirituality. Those 40 minutes I spent with that woman, I was only able to use maybe 30 seconds of that conversation in the news package that I created for the broadcast news show I was working for at the time. But I just wanted to relay that back to documentary filmmaking and say that as you are making documentaries, it is possible that your perspective could change or not. And so get an idea of the stance that you take, because really no reporting and no documentary is without spin or opinion, but also be willing to open and learn to other aspects of the situation.